Has this ever happened to you? A man pulls away, he doesn't call, he doesn't show up, and yet he's still there. In your stories, in the shadows of your feed, in the strange synchronicities that whisper, he still feels something. You sense it. Not because you're desperate, but because you're intuitive, because even when his body disappears, an invisible thread still hums in the air, subtle, electric, and haunting. But what does it really mean when a man doesn't reach out and still lingers? This, beloved, is sacred and shadowed ground, the threshold where the archetype of the puer aeternus, the eternal boy, meets the parts of your feminine psyche that haven't yet looked themselves in the mirror. The man who withdraws but never fully detaches exists between worlds. He commits neither to presence nor absence. He dances on the edge. And it's on that edge where many women lose themselves, not because they are weak, but because they hope. This man, the archetype of the evasive, is Mercury embodied, slippery, shape-shifting, untethered. He appears when you walk away, disappears when you lean in, and always gives you just enough to keep your heart investing in the invisible. He doesn't fully ignore you, because that would take courage. Instead, he hovers, he hints, he sends signals without direction, a late-night message, a like on an old post, a breadcrumb. And you, even when you try not to, ask yourself, if he doesn't want me, why won't he just vanish? Here lies the deep archetypal truth. He can't vanish, because your energy still feeds his ego, and your unconscious still allows it. There is a contract here, silent, unspoken. He plays the ghost, you play the seeker. He withholds, you wait. And so it continues. But this is not just about him. No man can haunt you unless a part of you still remains unclaimed. His presence in your psychic field, despite his absence in real life, reveals something far deeper. The part of you that still waits to be chosen. The girl within the woman who still believes that if she's good enough, still enough, patient enough, he'll come back. Not to you as you are now, but to the fantasy she still clings to. In Jungian language, he is not just a man. He is an animus projection, the masculine image your psyche has painted with the colors of your unmet needs. You're not just longing for him. You're longing for what he represents, validation, desire, the thrill of being seen and wanted without having to chase. But the tragedy is this: you are trying to awaken a man who is asleep in his own story, and in doing so, you fall asleep in yours. To wait for a man who lingers without depth is to abandon your own depth. To hold space for a masculine that won't move toward you is to betray the inner masculine within yourself, the part of you that protects, directs, and chooses. This isn't just about romance. It's about individuation. It's about reclaiming what was projected outward and bringing it home. Because the moment you stop chasing the ghost of a man who never fully shows up is the moment you begin showing up for yourself. There is a particular kind of pain that doesn't scream. It lingers, like perfume on a shirt long after the man is gone. The pain of ambiguity, of half-presence, of emotional limbo, of being watched, noticed, remembered, but not chosen. You see, a man who doesn't reach out but never disappears is not indecisive. He is feeding off a power you haven't yet reclaimed. He remains tethered to you by threads of energetic attention. Every time you check his profile, wonder about his silence, decipher his symbols, you are feeding the bond. Not the real connection, but the illusion of one. And he knows, even if unconsciously he knows. This type of man doesn't need to possess you fully to feel powerful. He only needs to know that he still lives inside you. This is the shadow of the masculine when it has not integrated purpose or integrity. He becomes a phantom king, ruling from a distance, offering no real presence, yet demanding loyalty from your soul. And the feminine, she becomes the priestess of his potential. She romanticizes his silence. She builds altars from his absence. She waits faithfully for the return of a man who left no real promise, only traces. But you must understand something. He does not stay because of you. He stays because he is not yet whole enough to release the need for energetic control. And the truth is, neither are you. Because as long as part of you clings to his shadow, part of you refuses to stand in your light. The woman who answers to the breadcrumbs is the same woman who doubts her own worth. She fears full absence more than she craves full presence. She accepts the echo because the silence feels like death. But it is not death. It is the birthplace of self-respect. When a man doesn't reach out but continues to linger, you are being invited to see the final test. Will you wait for him to choose you, or will you choose yourself? This isn't about deleting him, blocking him, reacting to him. That is still giving him your energy. This is about withdrawing the projection, calling back your spirit from where it wandered, not to punish, but to reclaim. Because this man, whether he knows it or not, is not offering you love. He is offering you the chance to break a cycle, to stop performing for scraps, to stop confusing attention with devotion. He does not reach out because he does not yet know how to hold a woman. And deep down, your soul knows it. That is why you ache, not for him, but for the parts of you that gave yourself away in the waiting. In Stoic philosophy, there is a teaching. We suffer more in imagination than in reality. This man, half present and half absent, only has the power your imagination gives him. He is not your soulmate. He is your mirror. What part of you still chases? What part of you still waits? What part of you fears that your fullness might be too much for a man to stay? Look there. That is where your healing lives. That is where your power was buried. Because when the feminine reclaims her energy from men who cannot meet her, she doesn't just walk away. She ascends. There is a moment, quiet, often invisible to others, when a woman finally wakes up from the spell. Not with anger, not with revenge, but with clarity so piercing it shatters the illusion that held her hostage. It doesn't come when he disappears. It comes when she disappears, from the emotional trap, the cyclical hope, the silent agreements she never consciously made. Because the man who doesn't reach out, but never fully leaves, isn't really in your life. He's in your mind. He's in the archetypal room where the unclaimed feminine meets the absent masculine, where longing replaces living. You have to understand, this is more than just a man. This is the pattern. He represents the unreachable, the masculine energy that dangles possibility without presence. And the more you try to pull him into your orbit, the more your soul shrinks, trying to become small enough for him to return. He does not come closer because he is not made for closeness. Not yet. Not in this season of his evolution. He may desire you, but he does not have the capacity to hold you. And the deepest ache for a woman is not in being rejected. It's in sensing potential and watching it rot in inertia. It's in witnessing that he could choose you and still doesn't. It's in feeling his silent pull and realizing he's not pulling you toward him. He's pulling you away from yourself. So, how do you break this? How do you reclaim your power from the man who lingers in your digital world, your psychic field, your unclosed loops? You must stop responding to symbolic presence. He doesn't need to speak to you to still control the emotional temperature of your heart. But you are not here to be lukewarm. You are fire. You are the storm, the sun, the sea. You are not meant to orbit someone else's indecision. This man is the test, not of your desirability, but of your discernment. He is not asking to be loved. He is asking to be seen as he is, fragmented, passive, undefined. And you must see yourself as you are, ready, whole, no longer willing to live in someone else's maybe, because the woman who keeps checking for his signal is not in love. She is in disconnection from her own worth, her own path, her own masculine energy that says, I move, I choose, I protect what is sacred. He won't tell you this. He'll just keep hovering, hoping you'll remain in orbit. He wants to be remembered, not responsible. He wants access, not accountability. But you, beloved, were not born for almost love. You were not created for men who can't find the courage to stand fully in your light. You are not a rehearsal for someone else's readiness. And if you still feel him pulling you back in, ask yourself, is this a calling from your soul or a contraction from your wound? Because love does not ghost and return. Love arrives, love stands, love chooses. There is a silence more dangerous than absence. The silence of a man who says nothing but still haunts your energetic space. He is the echo that answers no question, the open tab in your mind that never closes. But let this be known. A man who lingers without stepping forward is not a mystery. He is a mirror, a reflection of your own split between longing and loyalty to yourself. He does not stay because he cares. He stays because you haven't yet fully closed the door. And that door, it is not locked by love, it is locked by hope. Hope that he will realize, that he will rise, that he will return with more than breadcrumbs. But every time you wait, you unconsciously agree, I will put my life on pause for your hesitation. And that is the deepest betrayal, not of him but of yourself. Because here's the truth no one tells you. It is not rejection that keeps you bound to him. It is the part of you that still believes you need to be chosen, to be complete. It is the feminine wound passed down through generations, the myth that your value is determined by a man's ability to claim you. This myth must die, so that you can live. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This man, he is not fate. He is the familiar architecture of your unconscious beliefs, and until you see him clearly, you will keep attracting variations of him. Different names, same story. He doesn't message you, but he watches you. He doesn't ask how you are, but he reacts to your presence. And you tell yourself stories to fill the gap between his energy and his effort. But his energy is not love. It is unhealed desire, wandering without direction. And your hunger to decode it is your soul asking to be fed by something real. You see, when the feminine is disconnected from her own inner masculine, she seeks it externally, in men who feel powerful but offer no protection, in men who spark desire but cannot provide containment, in men who reflect what's missing inside. And the great turning point comes when the feminine stops waiting to be claimed and claims herself. That is the moment the spell breaks. That is when the ghost fades. That is when his silence no longer seduces you, because now you see it for what it is. A man who cannot come forward is a man still at war with himself, and no amount of your softness can make him safe. No depth of your love can build him a backbone. You were never meant to be his lifeline. You were meant to be your own. And when you choose to detach, not in anger but in truth, you don't just free yourself from him. You free yourself from every man who ever made you doubt your worth. You unhook your value from his gaze. You remember who you were before the waiting began. Because the woman who stops responding to half effort becomes unreachable to anything less than full presence. And that, beloved, is where your power returns. You are not crazy for feeling the weight of his silence. You are not broken for wanting clarity, and you are not weak for hoping he would show up, but now you must see what the soul sees, not what the wounded girl still wishes for, because a man who won't reach for you, yet refuses to release you, is not offering love. He's offering possession without presence. He wants to be felt without doing the work. He wants to stay in your psychic orbit, not because he values your essence, but because you reflect something he lost within himself. That kind of man does not love the woman in front of him. He loves the reflection of his own worth in her attention. And yet, too many women confuse this with romantic longing. Too many women wait in the purgatory of what if, shrinking themselves to stay appealing to a man who hasn't even earned access to their hearts. But the feminine must learn the difference between longing and loyalty. Longing says, stay open, just in case he comes back. Loyalty says, close the door because you are already whole. You cannot be both the queen and the abandoned girl at the same time. You cannot live in your fullness while waiting to be rescued from your emptiness. You must choose. And the choice is not about him, it's about you. This man, the one who won't speak but won't disappear. He is a gatekeeper, not to your future with him, but to your transformation beyond him. He is the final lesson before your rebirth. Because when you no longer flinch at his silence, when you no longer measure your worth by his attention, when you no longer search for meaning in his mixed signals, you return home, back to your body, back to your breath, back to your sovereignty. And here's what happens next. He will feel the shift, not because you announce it, not because you block him, but because your energy no longer holds space for his indecision. He may try to re-enter. He may send a hey at midnight. He may watch every story, but it won't move you anymore, because you will finally understand his presence is not proof of love, his proximity is not intimacy, and your heart is no longer available for partial men. The woman who breaks free from this pattern doesn't become colder, she becomes clearer. She doesn't harden, she deepens. She no longer confuses potential with partnership. She no longer entertains those who cannot meet her where she already stands. And from that place, a different kind of man will arrive, not a ghost, not a question mark, not a fragment, but a man who has faced himself, who doesn't pull you in through absence, but meets you fully in presence. A man who doesn't need to haunt you to be remembered, because he chooses to stay. He was never the destination, he was the mirror, the final test, the dark corridor your soul had to walk through so you would stop begging for closure and become your own completion. Because what you were really searching for was you, the woman beneath the ache, the queen behind the confusion, the sovereign self who no longer needs to read signs or decode silence, because she's too rooted in truth to be swayed by shadows. This is what the anima must do in her awakening: withdraw the projections, call back the fantasy, release the ghost, and turn inward to meet her own inner masculine, the force within her that protects, chooses, and leads. Because once she meets him inside herself, she no longer seeks that completion in a man who only offers her fragments. The woman who reclaims her worth no longer wonders, does he miss me? Why hasn't he called? Is he afraid of his feelings? She asks only one thing: why would I stay open to a man who cannot move toward me with devotion? And from that place, not of fear, not of bitterness, but of clarity, she closes the door, gently, powerfully, without drama, without needing him to understand, because now she understands. He was never choosing her. He was feeding on her attention, her openness, her hope, and now that it's gone, he feels the void, not because he loves her, but because she no longer reflects the illusion he clung to. And she rises, not in reaction, but in return, to herself, to her sacred no, to the boundaries that were once broken by the sound of his name. She no longer watches to see if he's watching. She no longer posts for him. She no longer sends messages in silence through curated images or cryptic quotes, because she has nothing to prove. She has learned that love doesn't hide. Love doesn't linger in half-light. Love moves with courage, not convenience. Love doesn't disappear when it feels too much, so if he doesn't reach out, let him go. If he lingers but never arrives, close the portal. If he haunts but never holds, choose you. Because the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.